Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our attendees joining us today for this latest Data Science Central webinar. This is Bill Vorhies, your host. I'm the Editorial Director with Data Science Central and also Chief Data Scientist for Data Magnum. I'd like to start off our event today by thanking Alteryx for sponsoring today's event. Alteryx is an integral supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we're honored to have them sponsoring our event today. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention and show our appreciation for some of our other recent sponsors, including Tableau, Teradata, Analytic, and Exaptive, to name just a few. Now, past webinars are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com, and if you haven't had the opportunity to view them, I encourage you to take a look. They provide some very useful insight into a wide variety of topics of interest to our community. Today's webinar is entitled Streamlining Analytic Processes to Boost Productivity, to be presented by Alteryx. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format of today's webinar. Today's webinar will be an hour long. We have two presenters that I'll introduce in just a minute. There'll be 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A following the presentation, and this event is being recorded and will be available on datasciencecentral.com later this afternoon following today's live event. Now, I'd also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions throughout the presentation, because we'll be reviewing and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A portion of today's event. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Lisa Aguilar and Albert Pardilla. Now, Lisa is a product marketing manager at Alteryx and is focused on understanding the challenges and needs of line of business analysts and helping them understand how to solve their analytic problems leveraging Alteryx. Albert is a solutions engineer at Alteryx, working with customers to help them achieve analytic independence and derive value from their corporate data. He's worked in analytics for over 20 years with leading organizations across multiple industries. So Lisa, Albert, thanks for being with us today. Now, contrary to popular belief, skills are not the problem when it comes to advanced analytics and BI projects. The problem is the process. This has started a shift in how organizations now support new analytics environment. In today's Data Science Central webinar, we'll learn how to eliminate analytic bottlenecks, ticketing queues, and process requirement documents, move away from data janitorial work and repetitive report building to take on more sophisticated analytic projects, and evolve analytic processes like analysts and analytic leaders at JPMorgan Chase and Ford to empower analysts of all skill levels. So Lisa, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can begin as soon as you're ready to go.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. As Bill explained, today is really talking about streamlining your processes and boosting your productivity and really making predictive analytics and business intelligence work for you. To level set the conversation, first we're going to begin going over analytic expectations from business leaders today, and then take a look at how analytics has evolved over the year and where there are still gaps in our analytic evolution, and then take a quick look at some things that Ford and JPMorgan Chase have done to make their analytic process more streamlined. We'll do a quick demo by Albert, and then we'll follow this up with a Q&A. So, analytic expectations. The good news is that 80% of business decision makers feel that analytics is important. And in 2 years from now, they feel that it is going to be a critical component to their day-to-day decision making. So what does this really mean in terms of expectations? What it means first and foremost is security for all of you on the phone who are in the analytics space. You are part of an industry and a department that is not going to be going extinct anytime soon within your organization. In fact, Forrester is seeing a global year-over-year rise in the investment in analytics in organizations. Now, with the good news comes some bad news. With great attention and great investment comes great responsibility and great expectations. So even though business decision makers feel that analytics is extremely important to them, the bad news is they are not satisfied with the current analytic process. 81% are dissatisfied with the speed in which analytics are delivered today, and worse yet, 69% are dissatisfied with the quality of work that they're receiving. Now, there is a bigger problem with this. This sets us up for the past 2 years. Skills have been the biggest challenge for most organizations, and 40% of organizations who are deploying advanced analytics today broadly are having challenges with that because most organizations are still depending on small specialized groups of people to produce these insights that are needed. Now, in most organizations, 60% say they depend still on data specialists and data scientists for the data analyst work. Now, what I want you to really take away from this is that predictive analytics is not really a problem. Predictive analytics is there. Predictive analytics is always going to be there. There are people there that know how to do predictive analytics. The problem is actually much bigger than predictive analytics. So how many of you have set up similar to this in your organization? It's a bit of a daisy chain model. You put in a request to IT for the data that you need. That data is then extracted. It's sent to data scientists or data specialists. And after they spend a couple of hours or days scripting out a model, that data source then arrives to the line of business who creates reports for consumption for the business leader. Now, this daisy chain model is very common. There's also a similar approach to this where there's a hub and spoke model. If you have something deployed like this within your organization, the good news is most of you have a process this way. The bad news is most organizations who are pursuing analytics, advanced analytics, and BI in this daisy chain or hub and spoke model are really depending on an older way of processing data. The underlying tools in the standard process were really developed for a time when the data environment was much simpler, one that had fewer data types, and with most of these data types actually already highly structured, like transactional data, all centrally organized, collected, and stored in the central repository. Now, the problem with this daisy chain or hub and spoke model, not only is it supporting that legacy view on what data is and how data should be processed, the bigger problem is this is a very long, slow, non-scalable process that doesn't support business decision makers' needs nor their expectations. Remember, as I showed earlier, a lot of business decision makers are really unhappy with the speed in which they're getting these insights, and then they're dissatisfied with actually the quality of work that they're getting. So, like I said earlier, the problem isn't predictive analytics, it isn't BI. The problem is actually the process, and it doesn't support the way that organizations are wanting to consume insights today. So when we're looking at things that are more advanced in terms of creating analytic models, this type of organizational layout for getting insights actually doesn't work and makes things even worse. So for example, for those of you who work on advanced analytics, I'm sure you know that it is an extremely iterative process. You create something, you may need to augment it with more data, you may need to look at it a different way, you present those insights and findings to your business decision makers who maybe want to get another view and add another data point to that, and then the cycle starts over again. With predictive analytics, this loop is supercharged. It is extremely difficult to get the data that you need quickly out of the database if you're having to go back to your IT and make sure that they're extracting the data sets that you need. So as we move into making predictive analytics, making BI work for your organization as opposed to trying to address the issue with more people, more processes, all you're doing is creating more lines and ticketing queues. And it's just not a scalable process. In order to make analytics scale for organizations, you really need to look at really breaking this daisy chain or hub and spoke model and approaching analytics in more of a webbed matrix approach, where analytics tasks aren't segmented by users or departments, but approaches data scientists and IT as consultants with line of business analysts and focuses on creating partnerships instead of queues. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, yes, this sounds great, but how do you actually support this model? Well, that takes us to our next problem that needs to be addressed when trying to streamline your analytic processes and make predictive and BI work for your organization. Now, I made this point earlier. Traditional analytic processes and tools that support these daisy chain or hub and spoke processes were built for a simpler time in analytics. The growing need to shift away from the centralized approach gave rise to a new wave of analytic tools, is what we're experiencing. The first in this evolutionary process was with self-service BI tools, tools like Tableau, which are targeting the needs of business analysts and helping them to discover patterns in their data set easier and then share those insights with decision makers more readily. The problem with this is it still only addresses one part of the challenge. Line of business analysts and data specialists still need a better and faster way to prep and blend all the data that they need to feed their BI tools. So this has given rise to self-service data preparation tools. Once again, these tools are really helping to address the needs of data specialists and line of business and allowing them to take full advantage of their data sources and prep them independently. The problem with this is there's still a growing demand in organizations to harness the power of advanced analytics and predictive analytics in particular. And so that's ushered in a new wave of tools focusing on advanced analytics. Now, each one of these tools is important in its own right and have brought analytics accessibility closer to everyone involved in the process. The problem with these tools is that they still primarily address one specific portion of the analytic process. In regards to advanced analytics tools, they've still been designed for data specialists as well and require coding or specialized skills often in order to fully harness them. The other thing that these tools don't do in and of themselves is they don't do a good job of actually breaking down those data silos or processes gaps. And they still somewhat reinforce that whole daisy chain hub and spoke model. In addition, a lot of these tools only focus on predictive as advanced analytics. But the reality is the concept of advanced analytics actually encompasses a broader definition. It's spatial and location analytics. It's prescriptive analytics as well. In order to make advanced analytics and BI work for your organization, there really needs to be data analytic tools that are far easier to use and can be deployed to both non-technical line of business data analysts as well as data scientists and data specialists. What this is doing is it's ushering the next evolution of analytics in the industry, and that is self-service data analytics. Self-service data analytics serves as a lingua franca. It's a common language that can be understood and leveraged by all players in the analytic process, independent on skill set and how specialized you are. The purpose is to foster collaboration and break down those data and process silos. A true self-service data analytics tool is going to maximize and complement all aspects of an existing organization's analytic infrastructure. It's not going to be something else that you're trying to stitch together. It's going to be flexible enough to empower line of business analysts and specialists the ability to perform the full spectrum of data analytic tasks, from accessing data, cleansing and prepping it, blending it, performing things like spatial analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, and then sharing those insights at scale. What a self-service data analytics tool really should do is provide line of business analysts the ability to perform progressively more advanced analytic tasks with pre-built models, widgets, and tools that don't require knowledge on coding, while still being robust enough to provide specialists the depth of functionality needed to create these sophisticated predictive, prescriptive, and spatial models. Self-service should serve as a platform where data teams can collaborate and share analytic workflows that can be easily understood as well as feed downstream processes. How many of you have ever tried to share an Excel workbook with cleansed data and models that were built in, or have tried to share code from an analytic model? The reality of it is it isn't easy to share and build upon each other's work without first requiring a meeting or explaining everything going on. And even then, it's not easy. Self-service data analytics platform really breaks down the process into something that is visual, easy to digest, and that someone can consume and understand what is happening with their data for trust, transparency, and accuracy purposes, and then use to build their own models on top of. So how do you cross that analytic chasm to usher in these processes to support a path to pervasive predictive analytics in your organization, or to really break down those data analytics silos? A lot of it comes with the right tools and making sure that you have the right balance of sophistication and ease of use. Now, I want to quickly talk about two examples here of organizations that have really been able to usher in self-service data analytics, maximize their existing infrastructure for analytic processes, as well as build better relationships between their IT, line of business analysts, data scientists, and data specialists, and their business decision makers who consume these insights. The first one I'm going to talk about is Ford. Ford is a great example where business analysts were able to shift their analytic process. They were focused on their ecosystems and integrating tools that they were working on and how they're improving data and analytic literacy. They pretty much, because they are a large global organization, had every flavor of legacy system known to mankind, which made their data landscape really interesting and challenging. Ford was trying to build a new ecosystem to manage all of these various data sources, as well as data flavors, as well as data landscapes that they had deployed around the globe, and how to better stitch together and collaborate between their data scientists, their analytics, and then their business professionals. Now, a part of bringing all of these people together was trying to come up with a common platform that they could all work on. And because each team had their own specialized toolkit, it was necessary in order for them to achieve the agility that they were looking for. And they realized that they really needed a common language, at least part of the time, when they were trying to build the data literacy and the data connections that they were looking for. What Ford did is they turned to Alteryx to help them finally create that flexibility and robustness that the users of various skill sets within their organization needed, and move easily from accessing their data to blending their data to helping them get their data visualization faster in Tableau or Click. Alteryx provided them that common platform, that real analytic agility that Ford was really looking for, in terms of being able to deliver insights and analysis for their consumers, which was the business decision makers, and be readily available to work on the fly with them, as well as streamline and automate some of their process and standardize a lot of their reporting so that their analytic teams could take on more complex analytic insights. Adam Blackie and Patricia Small go into the details in more depth of their time savings and how they built out their processes with their existing analytic infrastructure. I would love to go into more detail with you guys on this call, but with timing reasons, they have given a great presentation that I would not be able to distill down in time. If you guys would like to hear them and give the details of how they've really taken advantage of their full analytics stack and what they did, you can please visit us at alteryx.com/inspire. It is that hyperlink underneath the image here in the slide that you're seeing. Now, another organization that is really breaking down those analytic silos and making sure that they are building this webbed matrix approach where all analysts can access and perform every single analytic task is JPMorgan. So the analytics team at JPMorgan is responsible for bringing a 360 comprehensive view of marketing across all of their various channels and all their various lines of business, really trying to deliver a holistic understanding of their customers' relationships and interactions. The marketing analytics team at JPMorgan was really prioritizing on delivering insights that had to be accurate. The numbers had to be right. It had to be timely, delivered when business decision makers were asking for answers that they needed, and it had to be flexible, expecting that things would change and new questions would arise. Those are the three things that JPMorgan Chase's marketing analytics team was hyper-focused on being able to create. They went to their corporate IT department for help, and their friends in corporate IT listened to them and came up with a solution. What they did was they created a program in which they would hire programmers that would train for weeks and months to learn a specific programming language to do the data and analytics. And the marketing analytics team would go to these programmers and they would ask questions of these programmers, and these programmers would write these programs and give them back answers. Now, that seemed fine, and it actually worked for JPMorgan for a while, but they soon found that there were more questions than there were programmers, and this quickly overwhelmed the team that they had. The only way for them to scale this model of analytics was to add headcount and keep hiring more programmers. Now, to mitigate and manage the demand of analytics was actually treated as a scarce resource. And what they did was implement things like request queues and prioritizations. And what it did was it made it hard to ask follow-up questions of critical analytics that they would be producing. Now, they knew that their data that they got back would be accurate, but they were struggling with getting it to be flexible and timely. And as you remember what I said earlier, the three things that they needed to feel that they were succeeding was accurate, timely, and flexible insight. So what they did was they went back to their IT, and this time they had another solution. They would build and maintain a traditional business intelligence system. So the IT team helped build cubes and universes of data that allowed business users to self-serve and answer their questions and then access that with things like Tableau. Now, that worked for a while as long as the analysts thought of all of their questions up front. The data in this process was accurate, it was timely, but it was only timely for those predefined questions, and it was not really a flexible process. This is when the analytics team brought in Alteryx to help complement their analytic infrastructure stack and processes. And this finally allowed them the ability to put self-service data analytics in the hands of their marketing analysts. And when they coupled that with the Tableau, they finally realized all three goals of their analytic objectives of accurate, timely, and flexible analytics. Again, I don't have enough time to go through all of the full details that our VP of Marketing Analytics at JPMorgan presented, but you can hear his direct story again by looking at that link underneath this image here. It's alteryx.com/inspire2016. He does a really great job of breaking down how they built their stack and the performance improvements they were able to get. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Alteryx, it's useful to think of Alteryx as a repeatable workflow designed to help prep, blend, and then analyze all the data. Alteryx enables analysts to access and prep all the relevant data they need for their analyses, whether that data is sorted in Hadoop, a data warehouse, in the cloud, on their desktop, in Excel. Data types can be structured, unstructured, semi-structured, independent of size. It could be the biggest data set that you could imagine to the smallest data set. Alteryx, what it does is it works by being able to streamline, one, accessing those data sources, and then joining them all together on common fields or geographic proximity in a very easy drag-and-drop tool-based interface. Now, should you need to fill in any gaps within your data set, you can enrich your internally collected data with additional insights from Dun & Bradstreet, TomTom, and Experian, to name a few. And we integrate seamlessly with those data packages that you can just, again, pull in to augment and fill in any gaps. Now, with the same user workflow and the same drag and drop tools, analysts can perform the full scope of analytic model development, from predictive, prescriptive, statistical, to spatial. The predictive capabilities within Alteryx are based on the R language, but we've created custom packaged tools that can be simply dragged and dropped into the workflow and then configured. These tools do not require any coding experience, but if you are an R programmer, you can customize these tools or even create your tools to be reused within Alteryx by being able to just access some of the custom coding on the back end. We also allow analysts to perform spatial analytics within the same interface and in the same intuitive drag and drop workflow building models. Our spatial analytics tools use data from TomTom to build trade areas based on drive time or other variables to do sophisticated location or geospatial analysis. Alteryx provides a pre-built library which it continually enhances with advanced analytic tools that include predictive tools. These tools are available for immediate use to all analysts. Our advanced analytic tools are really just simplify the user's navigation of the analytic cycle. So if you look at being able to access, to prep, cleanse, blend, and then move on to perform more sophisticated analytics, the tasks and the processes is actually the same. It's a set of tools that are extremely intuitive and visual that you can quickly drag and drop. If you are a more advanced analyst, Alteryx provides the robustness in which you can custom code what you need to have done from a tools perspective or from a modeling perspective. Like I said earlier, most analytics are an iterative process, especially as you start to begin more sophisticated analytics models or as you begin to answer brand new business questions. You'll typically create an insight, go to your business decision maker. They will most definitely ask other questions of the data. With Alteryx, you can actually do this on the fly when you are speaking with your business decision maker. If you're looking at a different slice of the data, it makes it easy and quickly to be able to perform those tasks as opposed to having to go back to your desk, either create an IT ticket queue or write custom SQL code or access an additional database. Alteryx really helps in making sure that there are no black boxes when it comes to analytic models. That helps build trust as well as accuracy when you are working with your business decision makers and ensuring that you're giving them the right inputs that they need in the time that they need it. In addition, it breaks down analytic silos since the workflows and modules can be easily understood due to the visual natures of these workflows and can be easily shared across teams to support downstream analytic processes and insights. So nobody is really creating analytic models in their own bubble. These analytic models can quickly be interpreted and internalized and built upon by additional teams. Now, once you build these models and you have them, the important thing is to make sure that they're shared. If you build an analytic model and no one uses, is it an actual valuable model? Alteryx, just as it is agnostic in terms of consuming data sources, it is agnostic in how we like to share our insights. You can quickly and easily, if you're doing things like prepping and cleansing data, write that data right back into the data warehouse. You can create a report and quickly export that out into Excel. You can share it via PowerPoint. You can connect to the multiple visualization and BI tools that are available. We have strong technology partnerships with Tableau, Qlik, Power BI, Salesforce Wave. Just the possibilities of how you can share your insights is extremely easy. It's extremely intuitive as well as agnostic, so you can choose. Now, hearing is knowing, but seeing is believing. So I'm going to pass this on over to my counterpart, Albert, to show you exactly how quickly and easily you can go from accessing and blending data to building sophisticated models to sharing those insights.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. So what you guys should be seeing right now is my screen, and my colleagues will confirm for me if they can actually see the software. Can you see it, Lisa?
Yes, I can see it. We got
Great.
a good view.
Thank you. So for the next maybe 15 to 20 minutes, what I'll do is that I will give you a general overview, a 30,000-foot overview of the software. And like Lisa mentioned earlier, it is really geared towards that line of business analysts with minimal to no coding experience at all. But as well, for people with coding experience like myself, I have a SQL background. This has made my life a lot easier in regards to processing data, integrating data from various different data sources, and then performing advanced analytics and outputting it to a data visualization tool. So if this is the first time you're seeing Alteryx, this is what it looks like. It's a GUI process. All of the tools, we have about close to over 250 tools here. And they are color-coded based on their functionality, whether that be grabbing data sources from different data sets from different data sources, doing all of the prep, blend, transformation, and then performing advanced analytics, whether that be some sort of a predictive, prescriptive type of algorithm, and then outputting it into whatever data visualization tool that you're currently using. Again, like I said, it is a drag and drop process. It's a GUI type of format. You drag a tool and you drop it right here onto the canvas. So, and you're not limited in regards to how many different data sets or data types you can bring in. Right here, for this example I'm showing you, I'm actually bringing in a data set from a SQL Server database. And I can also bring in multiple data sets right onto the canvas. So let's say, for example, I want to connect to an Excel file, for example, right? So here I am trying to connect to an Excel file. And again, you are not limited to the number of data sets that you could bring in. You can bring in one data set, you can bring in 20, or you can even bring in 100. And I'm not exaggerating at all. If when I say you can bring in 100, you can actually bring in over 100 data sets. Again, it's all going to be dependent on your use case. And this is where we begin in regards to our analysis, right? The first thing, and like all data analysts, when we get data, we'd like to see it, and then probably we're going to do some sort of data transformation on it. We need to clean it up. And again, this allows you to look at the data, know more about the data, and if there's anything that you need to change, let's say, for example, looking at the format type of the data set. If you need to change it from a character to a numeric or vice versa, you can definitely do that. If you need to make the field name understandable and rename it, you can absolutely do that as well. So again, it's fairly intuitive. And what you'll see here as I run this workflow, you will notice that I will continually hit this button, because the reason why is because we need to see how our data is transforming from each step of the way. So let's say, for example, I need to bring in another column there because I noticed that there was a column that's missing. And again, if you have Excel experience at all, it's similar to Excel in the sense that you could create a column, know the formula, the algorithm of that column, and then run it, right? Run it, and then you will see that initially you didn't have that column right here at the end, and then you put in that column, and there it is. And the functionalities of Alteryx is really, there is a lot. There's a lot to say in this 15 to 20 minute demo that I'm showing to you. Again, I'm just giving you really a brief overview of the functionality here. But one of the functionalities of it can aggregate. It can aggregate data at all. So let's say, for example, you want to do a group by function, or in Excel, it's like doing a subtotal. In SQL, you're doing a group by on a certain variable. And again, you can aggregate it and then grab the sum, the number of incidences or count, and you will see how your data is being transformed each step of the way. As you can see right here, that this data set is a line item data set, and I wanted to aggregate it based on a customer ID. I'm not doing any type of coding at all. I dragged and dropped this tool, and just choosing the variables that I want, I'm able to aggregate it based on a customer ID. Again, you know, like all data analysts, when we look at data, it's usually not in a format that we want, right? So in this example here, this customer file, you see that there are leading zeros on top of this, on the left-hand side, and there are some characters that we need to replace and get rid of, or even some leading white spaces. Now, obviously, this is a prepared data set, you know, for this demo, but I just really wanted to point out that these kinds of instances that we see every day of not getting the data in a format that we want, this happens. This is real life, right? And so what Alteryx does, it gives you that capability of transforming your data set into into a format where now I can work with this, right? Now all of these I wouldn't say inaccuracies, but all of these little things that having leading zeros or punctuations, I'm able to take that out, and leading white space, I'm able to take that out. So now, once you have that data in its right format, you know, one of the biggest I wouldn't say biggest, but challenges that we have is integrating data from different data sources, right? Not just a data set in one data source, but different data sources, whether that be a table in Teradata or in Hadoop or a text file on your desktop. You're able to bring that in and integrate that here in Alteryx. And as you can see here, I have a table in SQL, a sheet in Excel, and then a text file here, a regular CSV file, a comma-separated file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to integrate. I'm going to do a blend. When I say blend, it's like saying doing an inner join in SQL or doing a VLOOKUP in Excel. So this tool that I just dropped right here, this is an equivalent of doing 3 VLOOKUPs at the same time. It's that powerful right here. So let me go ahead and run this, and you will see how your data is being transformed each step of the way. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to do a VLOOKUP on this other to append 2 additional columns here. As you can see, I want to append the sum of spend and the number of transactions onto this customer file. So all I did is drop this tool here, and as you notice, there are 3 anchors. You have the L, the J, and the R. Now the J will show you records that are common between the 2 files, and then the R and the L will show you records that are records that are only present in the top file. And as you can see, there are 0 records, which means all of the records joined. But if we look right here on the bottom, so we have 25 records, which means these are the 25 records that do not exist right here on the top file. And from here, it's almost like a QC process, right? Now I can say, hey, database, there seems to be some sort of an update lag here. You know, not all of these transactions exist in my customer file. Can you take a look at it? So, again, each step of the way you can see how your data is being transformed and how you can start manipulating it or even QCing it. You can even do a write outer join. You can bring in the data that's common between the 2 and the ones that fell out. And without doing any type of coding at all, it's really a drag and drop process that I'm showing you. And then I'm going to hit that run button again so you can see. And there you go. What we did here is we did a simple stack of those 25 records that fell out, and we were stacking it on top of the records that are common between the 2. Or maybe we don't want that. Maybe we just want to deal with the records that are common between the 2 because we have we're trying to do a model, for example. And that's the next step I wanted to show you is the different capabilities of Alteryx. So right here on the bottom file, as you see, it's a location file. We have an address, city, state, zip. And what I want to do is I want to do another join with the file above there based on a store ID. But what I wanted to do is I want to find the distance from the customer's address to the location that they visited. So again, one of the many functionalities of Alteryx is we can do geospatial analysis. And what I'm doing here is I am going to grab the centroid and the latitude and longitude of that address. And then on the top file, I already have the latitude and longitude. All I need is really to grab the centroid. And the next step, what I'm going to do again, is very similar to the earlier step, which is doing another inner join here. So now this time my inner join will be based on a store number. And you can see again, really the flexibility of Alteryx in regards to how many files you can do an inner join, right join, left join, and all that other joins that we need to do here. So what I'm doing next is I'm only bringing in the attributes that I need, which is that centroid, that house centroid. And then the next step is calculating the distance. And as you can see here, well, you know what? Why don't we calculate the drive time as well? Again, with the partnerships that we have, especially with TomTom, we can actually calculate drive time as well. So let me go ahead and run this. And now we have a data set that we just started with an address, city, state, zip. We're able to append a purchasing history of that customer, and now we're able to append drive time and distance data as well. So we can see the distance as the crow flies, the drive time in minutes, and the drive distance in miles based on the traffic. Now, one of the things also that Alteryx can do, since we have those spatial objects, we can create maps as well, as you can see here on the left-hand side. So again, one of the many functionalities of Alteryx. Now, the other functionality, the last functionality I wanted really to show you here is the predictive nature, the advanced analytics portions of Alteryx. So let's say, for example, again, we started out with a customer file. We have this column called a response column, and this is a marketing file. This file shows you how many people said yes and how many people said no to a marketing communication. And what we want to do next is we want to do a recontacting campaign to these same people. But this time what we want is we want to find just the records, just those people who have a high propensity of saying yes to the next marketing communication. So what I'm doing here is that I'm going to perform a logistic regression type of model. And again, I don't need to know any type of R code. All of these predictive algorithms here, the regressive algorithms and these classification algorithms, the underlying source here is R. And if you need to see that R code, we're not a black box at all. You can just easily open it up. It's a macro. You can see it, and you can see you can easily open it up and then see the R code. And for all of the data scientists out there and the R coders out there, there it is on the left-hand side. Now, if you want to change any of the parameters here, feel free. If you have your own proprietary logistic regression model for a specific use case, you can create your logistic regression macro and put it right here on the on the menu item. So again, it's open, and you can see definitely what how that logistic regression formula is created. And then here for the non-coders, right? Again, we don't. If you want to grab, use what we have here, the logistic regression algorithm we have here, it's really easy. You select your target variable or the variable that you're trying to predict, and then select your independent variables or your predictor variable. So since we took time in grabbing the drive time and this, the purchasing history, why don't we go ahead and do that? And I'll put in a browse here. And then you know what? For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and score this model. So we'll pretend that this is the model that we want to go with. Again, you are not limited. You can bring in as many models as you want at the same time and compare them against each other using a lift chart. But for the sake of time, I'll just choose the logistic regression model and then append a scoring tool here at the end. And let me go ahead and run it. And the beauty of this is that everything is happening in Alteryx, right? You're bringing in data from different data sources. We're doing a little bit of data prep, data blend, aggregation, doing all of the joins from these different data sources. We're doing a little bit of a geospatial analysis here by grabbing the drive time and the drive distance. And then now the predictive analytics portion. And as you can see here, these are the results of your algorithm, all of the different coefficients that you need, and also the McFadden R-squared. You can also have residual graphs if if you want that. It's right there. And again, we're scoring. You're able to score on the model that you've chosen. And what I'm showing here is that this scoring tool will append 2 additional columns at the end, right here at the end, as you can see. So now there's a way for us to figure out which ones have a high propensity of saying yes to the next marketing campaign and which customers that we need to avoid, because we know that we're not going to get a response, a low probability of response from them. So the name of the game here really is getting a high response rate. If we get a high response rate, that means our ROI will also increase. So from here, it's really a matter of data manipulation. I can put in a where clause where I can say, just give me the records where the probability score is, let's say, 70% and above. Go ahead and sort that from highest to lowest on the score. And since I have a budget, I can't mail to everyone, and you can set the number of records that you want, and let's output it. Let's output the results, and let's try to visualize it in a, let's say, for example, Tableau, right? So again, Tableau is one of our partners here. We can definitely create a TDE file on this. Since I already created that, hit the run button, and while that is running, I am going to open another sample workflow here. Excellent. Run that. You can see that I'm running 2 concurrent workflows at the same time. Again, the beauty of this is that everything is happening within the Alteryx environment here. And as you can see, I am able to create a Tableau data extract. In this example right here, on the next one, it's pretty much the same workflow that I just created. Again, with our partnership with Tableau, you don't have to recreate the wheel if you already created your dashboard, for example, and you just want an updated TDE. So I'm just going to hit this Tableau Workbook so that it will pop up. And again, it's there are many different ways that you can visualize this data set. You can obviously output it into Tableau. If you have Click, you can output it to Click. If you have Power BI, do the same way. Or if you just want the regular data set, you can definitely just have that data set. So as you can see here, this is the data that Alteryx created, and then it will be up to you to create your own dashboard here, as you can see. Or if you already created the dashboard, there's no need to recreate the wheel. You're just updating the data set, and you have an updated dashboard. So what I'm going to do now is pass the ball to Lisa.
Thank you, Albert. Let's see here. Make sure we can see our screen. I'm going to do a check. Albert, can you see the new slide?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So one thing I want to really recap is what you saw Albert do in the demo. Modern self-service data analyst tools are powerful because they allow you to do a full range of analytic tasks. You saw Albert bring in various data sources, perform predictive analytics, spatial analytics, and output to Tableau in less than 20 minutes. Ask yourself, can you really do it that quickly with your existing tools? Can you write a SQL query that quickly to be able to blend and extract and cleanse and prepare your data? Do you have to then send that over to a data scientist or a data specialist to perform that predictive insight? Do you then have to go to a spatial specialist, someone who knows GIS, and add that spatial component to your data set before you can actually finally get it back and share that insight? When we talk about self-service, we're talking about all portions of the analytic process, not just the ETL, data prep, data cleansing, data accessing portion, not just the predictive portion. And I think a lot of people sometimes think of advanced analytics and only think about it as predictive. It also includes spatial analytic functionalities and taking advantage of the location-based information that is within your data sets and then sharing that out. And not just sharing it out to another BI visualization tool, but also can you share it out to a visualization tool? Can you create your own custom report with it? Can you create an actual analytic app that you can then share out to your organization and allow them to self-serve and get the various slices of data they need without having to come back to you? When you think of self-service analytics tools, it really is a rich library of processes for the entire spectrum that allows all people who are involved in building analytic models a more intuitive, easier to use, fast way that is immediate. It's a visual drag and drop, building upon each step, and it's an intuitive drag and drop that enables you to faster deploy insights and make fewer mistakes as you're building them out and have these direct conversations with your line of business analysts as opposed to creating black boxes. It eliminates the need to understand complex programming languages, advanced degrees in statistics or computer science. It eliminates the need for additional GIS tools, any additional specialists. What you're doing is you're streamlining and you're enabling each of these teams equally and making it about the analytic process and not about the tools. The complete analytic process is delivered step to step in a single environment as opposed to across multiple environments. And again, it's not just an additional tool. What Alteryx is doing is maximizing your existing analytic infrastructure, making it much more accessible to everybody within the organization. And then you're getting out of that is you're eliminating the need to wait on highly trained or overworked statisticians or IT specialists to build out the models and the data sets that you need. So with that, I just want to pass this on over to Bill for Q&A.
Well, Lisa, Albert, thanks for that excellent presentation, and we'll get started with today's Q&A session. And I want to thank the audience for their participation. We've had a great many questions that have come in during the presentation, and we'll do our best to get through all of them in the time remaining. So during this Q&A session, I'll leave up this screen that has contact information for Lisa and Albert if you'd like to contact them following today's webinar. So let's get started. On a more technical, in the more technical vein of the questions that have come in, you talked about hundreds of potential data sources. We have an audience member that has asked about what happens if they have billions of records. I guess the real question is how much data can Alteryx handle and what sort of limitations really exist?
That's a great question there, Bill. So I'll take that. So Alteryx does not actually have a theoretical limit. We don't have a theoretical limit. It's going to depend really on the resources of your server and of your computer. Now, in regards to this, actually is a two-part question. Now, in regards to billions of rows, we have tools there. So, and I'm assuming that these billions of records is probably housed in some sort of persistence layer, such as a database platform. We have tools that we call in-database tools that you can drag and drop onto the canvas, and it will, as the name implies, you can perform all of those different processes and functionalities in the database itself. So you're actually using the database server's processing power to do all of that data manipulation.
Well, Albert, thanks. And on that last topic, let me just clarify. Alteryx apparently has the capability to do both in-memory and in-database so that not all the data needs to be moved onto the Alteryx platform. Is that correct?
Correct, yep. So with the in-database, if your data already resides in that database server, you can actually create SQL commands using these in-database tools and then send it to the database. And in that database server, all of the processing happens. Now, Obviously, you will have some projects or use cases that doesn't require billions of rows. You may have some hundreds of thousands or millions of rows that you can easily process in memory on your laptop as well.
Excellent. Oh, and thanks for that explanation. Go ahead.
Sure. And just to add on to that, in terms of our in-database processing, when we're talking about having those custom SQL query codes that are pushed down into the actual data warehouse to do all of the data prep and data blending and analytics that you're looking to do on those larger record sets that you don't want to pull out of the data warehouse because you don't want to bog down network, have latencies in that area. Our in-database tools look just like our regular data prep tools. So there's no learning curve that's a difference in how you treat data, whether you are accessing it and preparing it and analyzing it on your actual laptop versus pushing that analytic process down into the data warehouse. Those tools are one-to-one, so it's very similar and it's very easy. It doesn't require an expert to understand how to perform analytics or these preparations of these billions of rows of data inside the data warehouse. The other thing is, like Albert and I keep emphasizing, if you are a specialist and you're wanting to see the SQL query, Alteryx doesn't hide that. It is very open. You can quickly see the SQL queries that are going to get pushed down into the data warehouse and into the database.
Well, Lisa, thanks for that clarification. There are a couple of interesting technical questions that have come in. One that I think is particularly interesting to me, and that is, given the number of steps that are involved here and the number of times that you might have to revise your procedures in pulling data or cleansing it, is there a way that you can do version control on these different streams?
Yes, there is, and this is especially more prevalent in our Alteryx server version, where you can actually create a workflow and then share that workflow with your colleagues. It's still in a dev or test environment, right? And then your colleagues can review your workflow, and if there's any type of changes based on the collaboration that you have, your colleague can make those changes, and it automatically will version it for you. So, and it will retain the previous versions as well.
Terrific. Oh, that's interesting. We have time for maybe one more question, and I want to devote this one to some of the more general questions that have come in. I think that this question has two parts. First of all, how exactly do you make Alteryx self-service? Does this mean that data specialists aren't needed anymore? And maybe one way to get at this is to contrast how long the learning curve is for Alteryx compared to, say, becoming an expert SQL programmer or getting very, very good with Excel.
Let me start off the answers here, and Albert, please chime in. So the learning curve with Alteryx is actually really quite quick. We have multiple customers who have state that what used to take them hours to try and figure out, they're able to do in minutes. In fact, one of our customers from Charles Schwab has stated, and he talks about it in his stories on Alteryx.com, if you want to hear what he has to say, was he was working on a problem that was taking him hours and he just couldn't get it done. He downloaded Alteryx, and literally while he was waiting to get onto his plane, right there in that waiting area, was able to actually solve his problem. And when he got up in the air and connected to and he just ran it, and it was able to work for him. And it was something that he solved within just 30 minutes, which was a project that he had been working on for hours and days and months and weeks with various departments, and they just couldn't get it cleaned up and done in time. So the learning curve with Alteryx is actually quite quick. From a comment of, are you suggesting data scientists or specialists aren't needed anymore? I think the bigger question is what you want to ask is, why did you bring those data scientists and specialists on in your organization to begin with? Did you bring them on to be that person who just cleanses and preps and accesses data every single day and that's all they do? Or did you bring them on for their expertise and then their moderation on how they're going to really influence and make recommendations for how to build these models that actually impact the business and the organization and validating that these models are correct? So you want to ask yourself, if you are that data scientist or that data specialist, do you want to be that data jockey and data janitor, or do you want to do what you were hired in to do, which is to provide that advice and that expertise and that consulting aspect and allow other people to do some of that quick and dirty data work, really kind of offload that and become more of a process consulting manager and up-level what you're actually offering your organization. So I think that's how I would look at this, not as a displacement of your skill sets, but allowing you to actually show off what you're capable of doing, because you're eliminating all of this repetitive, daily, remedial tasks.
Well, Lisa, Albert, thanks for some very great answers to some good questions. And for those of you that asked questions that weren't answered today, we'll send all those unanswered questions to Lisa and Albert and the Alteryx team so they can follow up with you after today's webinar. You know, I have just a couple of quick announcements. Please mark your calendars for December 13th. That's our next Data Science Central webinar, which will be Streamlining Analytic Processes to Boost Productivity, to be presented by Teradata. Also, please remember that today's taping will be available for on-demand viewing later today, and you can find that on the homepage of datasciencecentral.com in the webinar tab that's located at the top of the page. Well, this brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and thoughtful questions, and a special thanks again to Alteryx for their sponsorship, and our speakers today, Lisa Aguilar and Albert Pardilla, for their insight into today's topic. My name is Bill Vorhies. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event. I look forward to seeing you all again on December 13th. Have a great day.